Working on small tabletop photography is going to be a great way to enhance your portfolio. It's simple to do. You can usually find things around your house with your neighbors. You've constantly got to work on your portfolio. When you get done with school, that's one level of your book. When you're 5 or 6 years into your career, that's another level. When you're 10 or 15 years into your career, that's going to be another level. Pictures that I thought looked great when I graduated school, that I thought I couldn't even take a better picture. I mean, 5 or 6 years later, I was embarrassed to even show it to somebody. I can't believe, wow, I actually shot that and showed it to people. So you are going to progress as you go along. I really like still life photography because you can really work your lighting. You can work techniques with very minimal amount of stuff. Today I've got a simple perfume bottle shot. I've got a really kind of cool background. This is something I had done at a metal fabricator, and they took a piece of metal and they ran it with one of those grinders to put some really cool patterns. It was used for a commercial job several years ago, and I've had it all these years. Occasionally I'll pull it out for some really tight close-up photography. It refracts light very well. We've got this really nice perfume bottle that I think goes with these lines because it has these kinds of stripes in it. I think it's a good pairing, so it's important to find the right background with the right product. I've got the bottle on the set. I'm just going to put a little something here to remember exactly where I was here. Pull it out. It's a small background. It's see-through and it refracts. It's got a lot of different shapes to it. In order for what I'm going to do next, I'm going to put a little piece of tacky wax on the very bottom of it here, just so that it's seated well to the background, and no matter if I bump the background or bump the bottle a little bit, I'm not going to actually change everything because this sequence is very important. The pin registration part of Photoshop is incredible. I call it pin registration from how it's really no pins involved, but that's what we really refer to it from the folks who did photography in the darkroom with pin registered masking. The registration part was always an issue with Photoshop. Everything is perfectly registered. So, but it's important that things don't move between the shots to make that work. So I've just got some tacky wax that you can get at Michael's, any of those type of craft stores. One thing of tacky wax will last you your whole career. I think that tub's been around since the early 80s here. And I'm just going to take a little ball of wax, put it on the bottom of the bottle, and sit it down where it was so that when it sits, it's literally not going to bounce around or turn on me. And the reason why is I want to make sure that when I'm going to go in there with some paper, and I don't want to actually, between the two photographs, actually have a problem. So I've got it set up on the live video feed here. Let's pull this guy out, and we can see while I'm looking here, let me first get it settled straight. And I'm going to turn it. I kind of like it coming. I can look at it different ways. I like a turn not actually dead center to the camera. I want the light is coming from the left to the right, pushing it a little bit, so I'm turning the bottle a little bit the same way. Now, right as it is, it's not a bad shot, but there's some things we can do. We can see right now the background is going out of focus, so we can do one of two things. We can shoot at very selective focus, let it fall out, or we can do that kind of after the fact in Photoshop. I always say to you, do it in the camera, but when you shoot things selective focus in the camera, you can't take it back. You can always make it more out of focus, you can't bring the focus back. So over a period of time, I've learned to try to do these things as if I know that there's a chance that it could be sharp, and I have, clients have said, make it blurry, and right at the end said, no, you know what, I changed my mind, let's make it sharp. I think about what I call the fast retreat. How do I cover all my bases when I shoot? So in this case, I'd rather shoot it as a sharper image, and then I can use lens blur, or more recently, I think the really best thing is Focal Point 2 from On1. Great plug-in, works in CS5 and 64-bit, and you can get truly the same exact effect that I can get with my lens with that software after the fact, so I can have it both ways. Now, one of the things that we do we can look first at the focusing part. I've got the 1DS Mark III with the tilt shift lens. We're looking downward. I'm going this way. We're looking downward on it, so the plane of focus is going to go from the top of the bottle and it's going to come out. It won't go from the top to the bottom. It's coming in an angle. So I can actually take that lens that's going like this now and shift it back straight so it's going up and down with it, which is going to change the plane of focus to match what we're doing. So I'll reach back here on the lens and spin it. You can see it actually happen here. If I focus on the top of the bottle, right, I'm going to have to pull it back a little too close. I'm going to back up just a little bit. Right at the point where I can't focus on camera, I'm going to go right to there, right there, and reposition that a little bit. And I don't have to even look to the camera, just watching the screen, right there. Now, as I focus, I'm focused right at the top of the bottle, but I can see at the very bottom of the bottle is totally out of focus. So I have to focus throughout the shot. So instead, if I take the lens and I spin it down, or I tilt it so that it's going up or down, now I should be able to say the top of the bottle is sharp and the bottom of the bottle is sharp pretty much at the same time. So the plane of focus is now going with the bottle. Now as I stop down, depth of field comes 1/3 in front, 2/3 in back. Everything will become sharper and sharper. Now, I noticed that I like the blue reflection, I like the way the light's looking, but I'm not real sure about the inside of the bottle. Now, in the days of film, when we had no other way to do it, all we would be able to do is say, I want a little white coming through the bottle. So you take a white card, a silver card, or whatever, and I would probably cut out a shape that would be something like the shape of the bottle. We'd start a little bit bigger, kind of a circular shape, and say, this is what I'm going to use, this little teeny piece of paper to put behind the bottle and refract some light in here. But the problem with something like this is by the time the piece of paper gets big enough to really do what it needs, it's already hanging outside the edge of the bottle. So we were always fighting it to say, enough if it was very flat, it'd be okay, but we're talking about something that's round, so it sees out in like 180 degrees. So the little piece of paper barely has any coverage whatsoever, and we're not really accomplishing anything. Instead, I can use this part of the piece of paper now instead of the other thing. I don't care about the fact that it's hanging out because I'll do it in 2 shots. Shoot it to be in 2 shots. Don't sit there and spend 4 hours fighting it to get this reflection just right. Shoot it in 1 minute and take 2 minutes in Photoshop to cut it together because of its beautiful registration issues. So with that cut out, and that's why I ended up putting the tacky wax there, I can come in here and we can see exactly without it, and then here you can see with it, it's adding not only some highlights, it can add some highlights in the back, but I can see through it better. Now, I don't want that piece of paper in the photograph at the end. All I'm going to use is just the center striping. I think that's going to be a very, very nice look, and as I pull back, also look at this, I know this is very subtle, but there's a specular highlight coming down the side here and coming down here. Watch as I pull that out. You see that specular highlight go away. You see that specular highlight, whoops, come back in. And if I need to, I could also shoot something in front of it. If it had to have this, I could do this, which I don't think it's going to need, but let's see what it does. We'll try it out. If we thought that that gave it a little more life, I don't need that kind of, it's just flaring out the black of it. So I don't need it in the front. In this case, I need it in the back. But this is a much better way to approach it. Instead of fighting it with a little teeny piece of paper, just use one giant one and we'll cover that. So I think we're good focus-wise, and the first thing we want to do is we'll take it out of the live view, and I'm going to go ahead and just reset the camera, make sure I'm nice and straight on this, right where I want it, and I'm going to spin it just a little bit, right? I think I'm going to bring it back. Now that I see it straight out, I think I'm going to leave it a little more square on. I like the look. I'm going to just the right amount, and I see some fingerprints from when I touched it with my let me just hold a second. So you want to come back in at the very end. When I touched it with my tacky wax fingers, I noticed I put a little fingerprint there, so let's get rid of that and clean it real good before we shoot. If you can, now what would you say? Oh, don't worry about that, I'll clean it up in Photoshop. No, that's not what you do. You clean it up right now. Physically clean it. Don't sit there and do stuff in Photoshop that you can do with a rag. So I'm going to come back in here. Actually, I'm going to hold this down. I see another little thumbprint right up front here. And just give it a nice little polish. Everything looks good. Put it back in. I noticed I got a broken part of that bottle in transit. Looked like it broke, so I'm going to spin it around a little bit here. Okay. I'm going to come back to the camera and just double check that. I can see that I'm not really straight to the set. I'm going to pull myself this way just a little bit, kind of realign myself a little better. Ah, perfect, right there. I like that. Clean, clean, clean. And I see, it's funny, what I see are the stripes, and they kind of look like a thumbprint because it's actually stripes refracting in the glass, but it's actually the way the background is. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and take the first picture. I've got it set for a reasonably low amount of power. I'm at 100 watt-seconds on the light. And I have it at set at a 100 ISO, f22, and we are set for tungsten, which is not good. We're going to go ahead and set our we'll set our lights for, I believe we're going to let's just do daylight for this one, and we can always do a custom white balance on that after the fact. And we're just going to do that right now. We are ready to go, and we need to go to manual exposure. Let's go ahead and take a look at one shot and see what we get right off the gate. Here comes our photograph. And if I look at that, I feel like I have too much, not enough headroom. I like the background, I like everything about it, except for the fact I need to come up a little more headroom above the bottle. I don't need to be centered, but that's not feeling right. So let's take another one. Brings that in. And that feels a little better. I can see that I'm tilted just a little bit. I want to tilt it right here, make it just right. This will be the last one. We'll lock this one down. And we'll call this one the keeper for just looking at a straightforward shot. It's out of focus a little bit, but not totally blurred out. So I can make that more blurred depending on what the effect looks like in Photoshop. I love the blue highlights in the inside. Now, I'll take my white piece of paper. Let's put it on live. Well, we've already seen what it does, but let's put it on live view for just a second. As we can see here. This is what it looks like with a tungsten light, kind of a warm. We can actually do that after the fact in Photoshop by just changing the white balance, just to see the difference where the card goes. I'm going to put it right in here. And it's really just lighting up the bottom. You can see those stripes, and it's got really good highlights on either side. That's good. We'll close that off. Now watch on the screen, watch the difference. Just looking at the center part of the bottle, when I put that in here, watch what happens. I'm not really concerned about the rest of the shot. I'm only concerned about the center of that bottle. That's going to be a beautiful pattern to paint in, plus those highlights right there. Everything is going to jump right off the screen. I'm very pleased with that. I've got a much nicer, a pretty cool highlight up here as well, refracting back into that. If I put another piece, I'm going to, just out of curiosity, let me try one more piece of paper and a couple more in the background to see what that actually does to that top of the bottle. I'll kind of experiment as I go, because I'm seeing some interesting things going on here. I want to see if that changes. If it fills that up with a little more white, if that does anything for me. And yeah, that's like, look at that. Look how much nicer that smooth-edged, out-of-focus gradation. The light is gradating on the white paper, so it makes it fall off naturally. That's even better. So that's going to be literally the bottle is going to be taken from that photograph. I could literally just do a clipping path around the bottle, lift that, and put that right onto the other shot. So between the two, we've got this. And of course, without anything at all, we'll pull all that out. And just to be, oh, we didn't shoot that. Yeah, we did. We got that shot. And then we'll shoot one more without it. You can just see watch the middle of the bottle and the back and the actual glass top. Boom. You know, so I've got the choice. I've got all the elements I need now to make the photograph. We'll just bring this into Photoshop on the next lesson and see how we can put this together, maybe try a couple effects and see how many alternative versions we can come out with this. It's all about keep working on your portfolio all the time. Assign yourself jobs like, you know, portfolio shots like they're jobs. I think you'll find yourself, if you give yourself at least say once a month, I'm going to have a portfolio day and I'm just going to stop everything and work for myself, you'll feel like you have some new fresh photography to work with. You're updating your website, you're updating your portfolio. It's just going to make you stronger, and the competition is tough out there, so it is, you know, pretty good is not going to be good enough. We want to be better than just pretty good. Let's keep working on our portfolios.